Okay, so here's some of the jigs that I'd made to do this project. And this plate was welded down to the bench. There's a holder out here. We'd started to build them like this, which is more labor involved because of getting them side pieces right, the bends right, yada yada yada. So we went over and bought some parts, and we ended up with this design with just a single tube and everything out in the back box. I'll show you one assembled here shortly. Getting them lined up to paint. Here's the ones that I all welded together. I said getting these ready to paint. There's made 25. They thought there was being a guess row that there'd be 25 instead of 24. So here's the tubes they go in. This is the clamps they go on. We don't have any of the clamp on. So this clamp slides on standing up like that onto that upright steel. There's another one that I put together. So then that's clamped onto there with that upright, and then this goes in here like this. So that's how that's held to the machine, is this tube will sit inside of here, just like that, and gets clamped on. Now this tube, I just made some of these plates today. I know the sides ain't straight and well, yada yada yada, but you can critique anything that anybody does if you look for the wrong. So now I gotta make a jig to set these in, or figure out some way so I get these pretty much so in the same spot, because I'll show you, I got it marked here. There'll be 3 holes here, and there's a 2x4 tube channel. Well, it's a tube that lays like this. So then this gets clamped with 3 bolts to the side of that tube, and there'll be one on either side, and then there'll be one of the cultivator de-ridgers on either side of that tube. Furnace kicked in. So basically, like how these two are sitting here now, side by side, there'll be a tube in the middle with them arms out either side with them clamps on, holding that on. And here's, like I said, I'll show you one assembled. That's assembled, and this one's assembled, and they'll look just like this here. So the best way to explain this is, in the fall they go along and they ridge the field. It's like a windrow, and they pile all the dirt up. It's almost like hilling potatoes. They put everything up on that ridge. Well, then in the spring, they come back and they knock that ridge down with these, i.e. de-ridger. The theory is to that, and what I was explaining today, is especially in a dry year where you're relying on rain to come and the seed to sprout and everything, that ridge holds the moisture and heat in it. Because it's just that combined area. The sun gets on either side of that ridge and it warms that dirt up. So they come along and they knock that down, and then they plant in that moist soil, and it's warm. And he says you can come back sometimes in 2 days and they'll be sprouted. And when they're sprouted in a couple days, that's another ton to the beet average. So that's the principle of this is for the beets, is to try to get them to come up faster, try to get them to sprout, and then they grow. I think I got everything covered. I don't know how else to explain this, but I don't have a chunk of 2x4 tubing here, I don't think, in this debacle. Well, I got some tubing here. It's not quite the right stuff, but to explain this so you understand, so this tube will sit just like this, front to back on the machine. Now, like I said, this plate will go here. Whoops. This plate will go here. This plate will go here, and of course this ain't a 2x4 tube. And there'll be 3 bolts in here, so that's clamped on. And then, well, that's backwards because the bevel. And then that gets welded on. Just like that. To that plate. So it's 24 rows, so I got let's see, it's 24 rows. So yeah, I got 24 of them to make. I screwed up because I was going in pairs, making these in pairs, just thinking I gotta have a pair for each one. But yeah, so like I said, it'll be just like this now. It'll look just like that on the machine. So, and then on the back of the machine, this is a cultivator, goes on the 3-point of a tractor. 22-inch row spacing. There's a shovel on the back here, and actually they use it for ridging, and we're converting it over for de-ridging. The reason is they got a 36-row speed planter. They only have one de-ridger, and they can't keep ahead of the planter. So that's the best explanation I can give of it, I guess, of how it'll look when it's assembled. I will get videos of it. I'm just going to keep doing updates. I'm just welding these together and keep going along. Like I said, this was a much simpler design than what they originally had. So we went over to a place and we bought these pieces here, and I cut the front ears off so they'd fit down on the tube. This is how they built their de-ridger, is like this. These are built like this. So when I said less labor intensive, is because these pieces, all I had to do is cut them front ears off. If I would have built it this style with the 2 flat straps, then I would have had to cut that top plate. I would have had to jig that flat strap on for the hanger onto that plate. Weld that all together. This here, and then of course, like I said, line up on side pieces and everything else. Of course, once you get a jig made, it would have been all right. I was working on building a jig. I don't know if I videoed that or not.